Hello and welcome. This is the next FP1 topic. This is carrying on with our idea of matrices. Now, what's drawn on the board there is pretty much the ending of what we finished up with in the last FP1 tutorial, and we were looking at adding, subtracting matrices from each other, and also times them from by scalars. Okay, but we're going to be looking at timed in two matrices together. Now in the last video I said, well, it obviously isn't going to be as easy as simply just adding like for like terms, or obviously doing the same but obviously timing it. So they're not going to be timed in like for like terms. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and give you an idea, because as I said, matrices are an array of numbers. Okay, it's just a set of numbers, but we can attach some kind of context to this to help you understand it. And then I'm going to go through, well, what do we actually do, okay? Right, so let's come up with one matrix. Okay, now the first thing I will say, one of the points you need to know, is when we're times in two matrices together, the first matrix must have exactly the same number of rows as the other has columns, okay? And we'll explain why that is in a minute. Okay, so say we've got country X and country Y, okay, and they get gold, silver and bronze medals, okay, and say we'll get country X has 1 gold medal, okay, and it has 2 silver medals and 5 bronze medals, whereas country Y, because the people are more intelligent over there, they've got 8 gold medals, 2 silver medals and 1 bronze medal. Okay, and let's say we're going to come up with a point score here. Okay, so P for points. We'll call it. Sorry, not the same number. Ignore what I said before about this having the same numbers of rows that this has columns. Okay, forget kind of that. I was jumping ahead of myself, going on to something else. It's going to have the same number in the column as this has in the row. Okay. But that is the correct way around thinking. I do apologise, my head's in a bit of a state. Anyway, so the points are, well, let's say for gold we've got 3 points, for silver we've got 2 points, for bronze we've got 1 point. Okay, so what would we do? Okay, so we want to find out the total points for each country. Okay, so obviously we'd end up with another matrix. Okay, so for country X, okay, they would have, well, the total points, well, there's 3 points for gold, and there's 2 points for silver, and there's 1 for bronze, okay, so it'd be 3 times 1 point, plus 2 times 2 points, plus 5 times 1 point, okay, and we see that's 3 plus 4 plus 5, okay, which is obviously 9 plus 3, which is 12, okay, so that's 12 points for country X, okay, so you put 12 there. For country Y, well, we've got 8 gold medals, okay, so it's 8 times 3, it's obviously 24, sorry, and then you add 2 times 2, because they have 2 silver medals, which are worth 2 points each, plus 1 bronze point, 1 medal, which is worth 1 point. Okay, so it's 24 plus 4 plus 1, okay, so 24 plus 5, so 29 points, okay, so Y's got 29. And what we've just done there, okay, is worked out total points for each country, so you can quite clearly see one matrix times another, we end up with a matrix, okay. Now, the reason why I said we need the same amount of numbers in a column for the for one of the matrices, then the amount of numbers, sorry, that's a better way of putting it, in the row for the first matrix, and that's because obviously if we had another here, if we had something else, if we had another medal but we didn't have any points for that medal, in terms of we didn't actually write a number there, let alone 0, okay, because that is a number, weirdly enough, we wouldn't be able to add it up. It wouldn't make sense, because we would have they would win a medal but we're not sure what the points were for, and you would never obviously get that in real life, because obviously maths is based off real life. So what have we actually done here? Well, the whole concept of this is quite similar to the dot product. Now obviously the dot product is totally unrelated in terms of why we actually complete the dot product. It's for a totally different purpose, but the idea of how we work it out, in essence, we times two numbers together, add them to the next set of multiplication, plus a third set of multiplication, okay, and so on. Alright, so what we've done there, okay, is we've times this row, this column, sorry, by the first row, and that by the first row, okay, and that's labelled the top left, okay, or in other words, just the top, okay, so this is the top of the answer matrix, okay, and then when we've done this row times the second column, that's in the bottom left, or just the bottom, okay, because when we times, two matrices together, which are both, this got two columns, and that's got two rows, okay, we will have, obviously, another aspect to this. Okay, so hopefully you've got the idea of that. That's just a situation. Now I'm going to give you the raw idea of what we do. Okay, so obviously it might not be as easy as that. You might get a couple of rows and a couple of columns. So what do we do? Okay, when we've got something like that. Well, as I said, I'll just give you another scenario, but I'm not going to give any kind of context here. I'm just going to give the raw kind of answer. Okay, so say we've got a matrix, okay, with times doing two together. So this one could be 3, 2, 5, 6, 4, 1. Okay, this is more like what you're going to see, just a set of numbers. Not going to give you any context, and we're going to times that by 2, 2, 1. Sorry, 2. So we've got the same number. 2, 3, 1, and 4, 7, 9. Okay, let's call. Okay, so this is matrix A, and this other matrix we'll call that B. Right, and we'll call the first row in matrix A, we'll call that R subscript A, and then, we'll call this row 1 and row 2 of matrix A, okay, and for matrix B, okay, we'll call this, so going down, we'll call that column 1 and column 2 for matrix B. Okay, so the actual method we do, okay, is I can write it out in terms of actually looking at what we timed together, because as I said, that answer we just did, that would work fine if you understood the context and were given a context. But just to reiterate the actual method in terms of what we're timesing by what and what we're adding to what, because that's what is confusing in this topic. Okay, so obviously when we times these two together, we'll get a matrix that looks like the second one. Okay, right. So the top left of this matrix, the top left number, okay, is going to be column 1 of B, okay, so column 1 of B times row 1 of A. And the bottom left, okay, because this is, if we ignore the right hand side of this, this is just, if we were just doing that, okay, then we do column 1 times row 2, and we put that in the bottom left. So the bottom left is column 1 times row 2, in terms of column 1 of B times row 2 of A, okay, and that's in the bottom left of this matrix. The top right, okay, well we're starting on column 2 now, which is column 2 times row 1, and the bottom right is column 2 times row 2. Okay, so it's column 2 of B times row 2 of A. Now you could continue that principle in terms of the way you would add that if you add another column here and another row to A. In terms of if you add a third row to A and a third row to B, then you would obviously have to include another line in here. But really, that's kind of the level we're looking at. Alright, so what I'm going to do is obviously work this out now. So when I say column 1 times row 1, okay, what I mean is obviously this, so 2 times 3, so you've got 2 times 3, plus 3 times 5, plus 1 times 4, and that is obviously, therefore, 6 plus 15 plus 4, okay, so that's obviously 25. Okay, so that is equal to column 1 times row 1. Right, and then the next one, bottom left, is that I'm going to do column 1 times row 2. Okay, so it's column 1 times row 2. So it's 2 times 2 plus 3 times 6 plus 1 times 1. Okay, so that's obviously the same as 4 plus 18 plus 1. Okay, which is obviously the same as 19 plus 4, which is obviously 23. And we say that is column 1 times row 2. Right? And now what we need to do now is look at column 2. That's column 2 times row 1, which is obviously 4 times 3 plus 7 times 5 plus 9 times 4. Okay, which is therefore obviously 12 plus 7 times 5, which is 35. Okay, plus 9 times 4, which is obviously 36. Okay, so 71, 83. Sorry if that is wrong, but you get the idea. So that's column 2 times row 2. So it's a column 2 of B times the row 2 of A. Okay, and it will always be this way around. Right? Now the next one we have to do is column 2 times row 2, because that's the only two we haven't multiplied together. Okay, so it's 4 times 2 plus 7 times 6 plus 9 times 1. Okay, and that's obviously 8 plus 7 times 6, 6 times 6 is 42, and 9 times 1, which is 9. I'm learning my times tables, I'm doing pretty good at it. Okay, and that's obviously therefore 59. Have I done that right? For sake, I do apologise. And that's column 2 times row 2. I do apologise, the previous one was column 2 times row 1. Yeah, I do apologise, sorry about that. Okay, so essentially what's happened here is we've times the column of B by each row of A, okay, and then each column of B times each row of A. So when you get multiplication, okay, and obviously it might be more than 2 columns of B and it might be more than 2 rows for A, you will times each row of B, sorry, each column of B by each row of the first one. Okay, so each column of the second matrix by each row of the first matrix, and add them all together. Okay, and the way you arrange them when you've got all of these answers, okay, in your matrices, you follow this pattern. Okay, so it's the first column of the answer matrix. Okay, is column 1 times row 1, column 1 times row 2, column 1 times row 3 if there was a third row. Okay, and then the second column of the answer matrix is the second column of this multiplication matrix. Okay, I'm confusing you already. You can ignore me. And it's column 2 times row 1, column 2 times row 2, and if you add any more, it'll be column 2 times row 3, column 2 times row 4, etc., etc. And then in the third column, well, you would start with the third column of the second matrix. Okay, so it'd be column 3 times row 1, column 3 times row 2, column 3 times row 3, etc., etc. So you just follow the basic formula. Okay, so it's column 1 times row 1, and then it's the second one, column 2, or column of so yeah, you get the idea. Okay, so hopefully, because we're arranging it like the first column, the answer matrix is the first column of the answer matrix is the first column you times, okay, which is the multiplication matrix. So it's column 1 of B. It goes of the second matrix goes in the first column of the second matrix times in, or whatever it is. Okay, it goes in this first column of the answer matrix, because you compare them, okay, like for like. And in essence, the multiplication, just to reiterate, is you times all of the columns of B by all of the rows of A. Okay, so you make sure you've multiplied each row of B by each matrix in A. Okay, and you rearrange it by column 1 times each row of column 1 of the second matrix of B times each row of A. Okay, that goes in the first column of the answer matrix. The second column of B times each row of A goes in the second column of the answer matrix. And if you add any more, so your third column of B, times the third row of A, that would go in your third column of your answer matrix, and you would go down in terms of the rows. So that would be row 1, row 2, row 3, just like you would have for these two. Okay, so we do end up with a similar matrix. Hopefully that's how you can kind of show it's all linked. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put a few questions on the board, so if you want to have a go at them. As I said, the best way for you to learn this topic, okay, in terms of multiplying out the matrix, I'll leave that idea on the board, but obviously don't answer that, but you get the idea, okay. It's just to, I mean, you can easily come up with your own matrices, okay. They don't have to be off a textbook, they don't have to obviously be off an exam, they don't even have to be off this very fine video, may I say. You can just come up with your own two matrices and times them together. Obviously, you won't come up with a mark scheme for yourself unless, well, what's the point in answering the questions, creating the questions even. But as I said, it's just a simple method, you going over the method in your head. Alright, so I'll just, as I said, I'll put a few questions on the board here for you. So actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to pause the video, and it'll be a second on, and it will come back with a load of questions which you can obviously have a go at. Okay, so I'm just going to give the video a quick pause and write some questions on for you. Okay, so there I've just put a few questions on the board there for you to have a go at. Now, so the A and B are pretty much exactly questions like what we've just did, and question C, I put that on the board purely to see if you understood what I was saying about, you know, if you had more than one column of each, okay? Sorry, more than, it's slightly different to the ones I've done before, but I have explained how to do it, but I'll just point it out anyway, so if you're going to have a go, then you might want to listen up. Okay, so I said say this is the second vector, this is the second matrix, sorry. So we'll call this column 1, column 2, column 3. We'll call this row 1, row 2, and row 3. Okay, so what you would do is you do the first row, the first column of the second matrix times the first row of the first matrix, and you would, so you do the first column of the first column of the second matrix. You would put all of them, okay. You do the first column times each row in the first column of the answer matrix, the first column of the second column of the second matrix times the rows of the first matrix in the second column of the answer matrix, and then the third column, the second matrix, times all of the rows of the first matrix in the third column. And you would go down as so. So column 1 times row 1, column 1 times row 2, column 1 times row 3, and that's for the same for each of the 3 columns. Okay, so try to explain how you would arrange your answer to that one, and I kind of give you a bit of a head start as well. So I do apologise if you wanted to have a go at that, but as I said, it's a very difficult task. Okay, so the main thing, you need the same amount of numbers in the row for A for the first matrix as the number of the amount of numbers in each column of the second matrix, or whatever matrix you're timesing it by. So please do feel free to have a pause the video and have a go at them questions if you would like to, and I'm going to go through them questions in a second. Okay, so if you've had a go, that's really good. What we're going to do now is I'm just going to obviously go through A, B and C. A and B are quite similar. Very similar to, I've actually wrote what you would do on the board to get you started off. Okay, the first thing that I would do in these questions is label what my first column and my second column was. Okay, I'm just going to go a bit adventurous and start labeling them in red and blue again. Okay, so in my second matrix I'm going to label in blue. Okay, so this is column 1, column 2. And my first matrix I'm going to label that as row 1 and row 2, R1 and R2. Okay, so if you compare it to what we've got up here, you can say we need column 1 times row 1, column 1 times row 2, column 2 times row 1, and column 2 times row 2. So the first thing what I'm going to do is column 1 times row 1. Okay, so we've got 8 times 3. Okay, so 8 here times 3. That's the first one. Okay, so 8 times 3 plus 2 times 2. Okay, and you add to that 7 times 9. Okay, and you work that out. So 8 times 3 is obviously 24. 24 plus 4, well, that's obviously 28. And to add to 28, you add, oh my god, 63. 28 plus 63. I have to do that like calculator. That is quite embarrassing, but never mind. 91, should have known that. Anyway, so column 1 times row 1 is 91. Okay, the next one I'm going to do is column 1 times row 2. Okay, so following this pattern. So you might want to start writing the answer matrix. So the top left one you would write is 91, because that's column 1 times row 1. Column 1 times row 2, so it's 8 times 3 again, but remember it's the second row. I probably shouldn't have wrote the same number in it like that. And then we've got 2 times 4. Okay, and then you do 9 times 1. Add that to 9 times 1. So obviously we've got 24 plus 8, okay, which obviously 32. And you add 9 to that, which obviously gets you 41. Okay, so in the bottom left, where it's column 1 times row 2, we've got 41. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly put that out, because I need a bit more space. So hopefully you understood how we got column 1 times row 1, column 1 times row 2. Now we need to look at the column 2. Okay, second column, the second matrix. Okay, so what we've got here is we're going to do column 2 times row 1. So it's 4 times 3. Okay, and you add 1 times 2, or 2 times 1, not sure what you want to look at it, plus 7 times 7. Okay, so obviously therefore it's 12 plus 2 plus 49. Okay, so it's, in other words, it's 13 plus 49, which is 62. Yep. Just double check, that's 13 plus 49. I'm not looking very good, yeah, it's 62. Don't know why I doubt himself. Okay, and then we're going to do column 2 times row 2. Okay, so it's obviously, again, 4 times 3. And then it's 4 times 4. So you add 4 times 4. And then it's... Oh, sorry. Sake. Do apologise, I just rub that out. So it's 4 times 3 plus 1 times 4 plus 1 times 7. Okay, so for column 2 times row 2, it's 12 plus 4, so obviously 16 plus 7. Okay, so as I said, that's 16 plus 7, which is 23, obviously. Didn't have to work that out. 23. Okay, so column 2 times row 1, that goes top right. Okay, so column 2 times row 1 goes top right, which is 62. And then column 2 times row 2 goes bottom right, which is 23. Okay, as I said, it won't always be bottom right, it's just the second column. Okay, but I say bottom right because it's only a 2 by 2 matrix that is answered. Okay, right, I should probably put like little dashes here because that's 1, 8, not 18, sorry. I probably should have done all this before, so I really do apologise, but hopefully you can kind of see where the numbers are. So if you want to have another go now, knowing where the actual numbers are, you can do. So I do apologise if I didn't specify it, obviously. Okay, so for this one, it's the exact same principle that we had over in the first one. Now, there's nothing stopping you in the exam writing all this column 1, column 2 business. And I personally would recommend it, because of all the questions I've done when I've not done that, I've been more likely to make a mistake. Okay, so the multiplying column, so it's column 1, column 2, the second matrix, and row 1 and row 2, the first matrix. Okay, so that's row 1, row 2. So, following the same pattern that we have up here, well, it's going to be column 1 times row 1 first, so it's 1. Oh god, you see I made a mistake there. You can quite clearly see that. If you didn't spot, you would have ended up doing 7 times. Oh god, that's embarrassing, that really is, I do apologise. So I'm just going to add 3, 2 to the bottom of the second matrix on part B. So I do apologise about that, but there's nothing obviously that I'm going to do. Alright, so if you want to have a pause of that and have a go now, so I really do apologise. Anyway, so the first one we're going to do is column 1 times row 1, so it's 4 times 1, 1 times 4. Okay, and you add 2 times 2, 3 plus 3 times 7. 3 the one that's just added on. Okay, so it's obviously 4 plus 4, 8, plus 21, okay, which is obviously 29. So that's column 1 times row 1, which is obviously, if we look at here, it's the top left, okay, so that's 29. And then it's column 1 times row 2, okay, which is 1 times 3 plus 2 times 9 plus 3 times 1. And there's obviously 3 plus 18 plus 3. In other words, it's 6 plus 18, which is 24. Right, so I do apologise. So that's bottom left because that's column 1 times row 2. That's 24. And now we're going to do the column 2 times the rows in the first matrix. Okay, so it's column 2 times row 1. Alright, which is 8 times 4. Make sure I was doing that right. And then it's 9 plus 9 times 2. Now, even though you know what 9 times 2 are in all of these, you need to write it out like this. Okay, so it's 2 plus 2 times 7. Okay, so in other words, it's 8 times 4, which is 30. Oh my, yeah, 32. I'm going to say it's embarrassing. So 32 plus 18 plus 14, which is obviously 64. You can see how little I trust myself with maths. And then it's column 2 times row 2, which is obviously 8 times 3 plus 9 times 9, okay, plus 2 times 1. Okay, so it's 8 times 3, which is 24, 9 times 9, which is obviously 81, plus 2, which obviously gets you 107. Okay, so this is 64 is column 2 times row 1, which is this here, so it's 64, top right, and then bottom right is 107, column 2 times row 2. So A and B were really simple. Hopefully you can get that. If you got the examples I went through, that should be absolutely no problem at all. Job done. However, quite clearly this part C is going to be a little more tricky, and is potentially something that you're more likely to see in the exam, because obviously the ones we've gone through just then are fairly quite simple. Okay. Now we're going to apply the same principle, okay, in terms of labelling our columns. But obviously in both we're going to have 3 columns and 3 rows. Well, sorry, yeah. Anyway, so you label 3 columns in the second matrix and the 3 rows in the first matrix. Row 1, row 2 and row 3. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just create a new idea. Okay, so kind of what I was trying to explain before. Okay, so we follow the same principle. As I said, the answers for the so it's column 1 times row 1, column 1 times row 2, and column 1 times row 3. Okay, and then in the second column, the answer matrix is going to be the second column of the second matrix. Okay, so column 2 times row 1, column 2 times row 2, and column 2 times row 3. And then in the final column in the answer matrix, we're going to have column 3, which is the third column of the second matrix. Okay, so it's column 3 times row 1, column 3 times row 2, and column 3 times row 3. Okay, so you can see it follows the same kind of principle that we had up here, but we're just introducing another column and obviously another row as well. So we're sort of taking this idea and adding another column and another row. That's all we've done. Okay. Now, as I said, you might get matrices which have even more columns and rows, but the principle behind working them out remains exactly the same. Okay. So the first one we're going to do is column 1 times row 1, which is quite clearly 4 times 2. So I'll bracket all this off now. So it's 4 times 2 plus 4 times 12. I could have picked easier numbers, couldn't I? Never mind. Plus 7 times 10. Okay, so that's obviously 8 plus 48 plus 70. 8 plus 48 plus 70. Which is 126. Okay, so that is your equal to column 1 times row 1. You might want to put that in your answer because just on your page, because obviously we're going to be doing a lot of columns and a lot of rows here. Alright, the next one we're going to do is column 1 times row 2, just like we did before. Nothing different so far. Okay, so it's going to be 4 times. So it's column 1 times row 2. Okay, so it's 4 times 10 plus 4 times 11 plus 7 times 4. Okay, so that's 40 plus 44 plus 28. Okay, so it's 40 plus 44 plus 28. Which is 112. Okay, and so that is equal to column 1 times row 2. Okay, next we're going to do column 1 times row 3. Okay, so it's going to be 4 times 2, the first one in row 3, and then the second one in column 2. Okay, so it's going to be 4 times the third in row 2, which is 11. Sorry. The second one in row 3, I do apologise, 4 times 1 plus because we're doing column 1 times row 3, okay, and on the final sum of column 1 times row 3, okay, so it's 7 times 1. So, in other words, column 1 times row 2, excuse me, is 4 times 2 plus 4 times 1 plus 7 times 1, so it's 8 plus 4 plus 7, which is obviously 19, okay, and that is equal to column 1 times row 3, okay. So there's your answers for columns. So that's the first column in this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rub this out, okay? So this will be your answer up here, okay? Right, so we want column 1 times row 1, which we know is 126. And then below that, in the first column, the answer matrix is column 1 times row 2, which is 112. Okay, and then in the third row, in the first column in the answer matrix, it's 19. Okay, now we want column 2 times row 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rub that bit out, okay, so we've done so far, so we don't get too crowded on the board here. Okay, so just to be clear what we've done so far, column 1 times row 1, which is 4, 4, 7 times 2, 12, 10. Obviously, you do the individual sums and add them up, you get 126. And then it's column 1 times row 2, which is 4, 4, 7, 10, 11, 4, okay, which when you add them up, sums, you get 112. And then we did column 1 times row 3, so we've times the column of the second matrix by all of the rows of the first matrix. And we need to repeat that process for each column in the second matrix, okay? And laying it out as well is one of the key arguments with this. Okay, so the next one we're going to do is column 2 times row 1. It's a tedious process, but the more you do it, obviously the easier it becomes. So it's column 2 times row 1, which is 2 times 2. And please correct me on the comments if I make a mistake, but I don't think I do. Okay, so it's column 2 times row 1, so it's 2 times 2, 8 times plus 8 times 12. Okay, and then it's plus 9 times 4. Oh no, damn it! Sake. Shut myself up. Remember, it's column 2 times. Oh, yeah, no, that's right. Oh, you feel moving. Right. Column 2 times row 1. 2 times 2, 8 times 12, 9 times 10. I'm partly doing this for you and partly doing it for me as well. Okay? Because my brain's a bit of a mess. So it's obviously 4 plus 8 times 12 plus 90. Which gets you 190, and 190 is the answer, that is 190, and that is the answer to column 2 times row 1. Okay, so now we've done column 2 times row 1, we can put a number in there, which is 190. Now we want column 2 times row 2, which is where we'd normally be on the last one by now. Alright, so column 2 times row 2, well that's 2 times 10. Plus 8 times 11 plus 9, that was 9 times 4. Okay, so in other words that's 20 plus 88 plus 36, which gets you 144. Okay, and that's column 2 times row 2, which we replace that, it's the middle one in our answer matrix of 144. And that is column 2 times row 2. Now the next one we're going to do, because we're still focusing on the second column, is column 2 times row 3. Alright, now column 2 times row 3, well it's obviously 2 times 2 plus 8 times 1 plus 9 times 1. 9 times 1 coming from here and here. Sorry, I'm not sure if you can actually see what I'm saying here and here, and all you can see is my back. Okay, so we're doing column 2 times row 3, so it's 2 times 2, 8 times 1, 9 times 1. Okay, so it's obviously 4 plus 8 plus 9, 4 plus 8 plus 9, which is obviously 21. And that is equal to column 2 times row 3. And that's the column 2, the second matrix, times all of the individual rows of the first matrix, okay, which is our answers so far. Okay, so you replace column 2 times row 3 with 21. Now we're on our final step. We're doing the third column in the second matrix times all of the rows in the first matrix. So you can see why this is such a tedious task. But you can see it's not as bad as you would have first thought. Okay, so column 3 times row 1. Alright, so we're on column 3 here, the second matrix times row 1, the first matrix. So it's 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is a common one. I probably should have picked something different. So it's column 3 to 2 times the first one in row 1, 2. And it's the second one in column 3 times the second one in row 1. Okay? When I say rows, I'm mostly referring to the first matrix and columns to the second matrix. But obviously both have columns and rows. Okay? So just to confuse you. Anyway, so it's 2 times 2 plus 1 times 12. Okay? Plus 7 times 10. So I do apologise about the noise outside. It's just damn meddling kids. Okay, so it's obviously 4 plus 12 plus 70. So 4 plus 12 plus 70. And that's your answer to column 3 times row 1, which is 86. Okay, and that's equal to column 3 times row 1. Alright, and that is the top right in our answer matrix, which is obviously therefore 86. Now the next one we need to do is column 3 times row 2. Alright, so column 3 is the last column in the second matrix times the second row in the first matrix. Okay, so basically it's this column, so 2, 1, 7 times 10, 11, 4. Okay, so obviously the first one, therefore, because we're doing column 3 times row 2, is 2 times 10 plus 1 times 11 plus 7 times 4. Okay, so that's clearly 20 plus 11 plus 28, which is obviously 59. If any of my individual calculations, so 7 times 4, whatever, something like that might be wrong, so please do let me know. But I'm pretty sure I'm right. So it's column 3 times row 2. The next one we're going to do is column 3 times row 3. So it's 217 times 211. Okay, so it's 2 times 2. First one in column 3 times the first one column in row 3. Okay, and then it's 1 times 1. So it's 1 times 1. And then it's 7 times 1, or 7 times 1. So therefore it's quite clearly 4 plus 1 plus 7. Okay, so 4 plus 1 plus 7 is 12. And that is equal to column 3 times row 3. Now you could have more columns and more rows and you would still follow the same principle. Okay, so if you were to add another column and another row to each one of these, okay, so if you had a fourth column and a fourth row, then you would just add the bottom right of this, the bottom, you'd add another row into the answer matrix and another column into the answer matrix, following the same principle that the first column in the answer matrix is the answers of the first column in the second matrix times all of the rows in the first matrix. Okay, so it'll be column 1 times row 1, column 1 times row 2, column 1 times row 3, column 1 times row 4. And then the second column, the answer matrix, would be the sum of the second column in the second matrix times all of the rows in the first matrix. So column 2 times row 2 times row 3. Okay, and then times row 4, and then in the third column in the answer matrix would be the sum of the third column in the second matrix. Okay, so this one times all of the rows of the first matrix. Okay, so it'd be column 3 times row 1, column 3 times row 2, column 3 times row 3, column 3 times row 4. Okay, and then if you were to add another column in the in the second matrix, okay, so it'd be, then you would have the fourth column in the answer matrix would be the fourth column in the second matrix if we had one. So then you'd do the same pattern of column 4 times row 1, column 4 times row 2, column 4 times row 3, column 4 times row 4. But as you can see, that would be a hell of a lot more difficult to try and keep your mind wrapped around. But the principle of actually working the one row times another is very simple. It's just which do a times by which is the kind of main drama really of this topic. So hopefully I've tried to talk you through it. As I said, I do apologise if I went on far too long, but it's a very, very difficult topic, and hopefully you can kind of appreciate why I didn't chuck it in the last video when I was talking about adding and subtracting matrices, because I probably would have passed out, and I'm not 100% sure you learned something out from something from a passed out, well I was going to say teacher, I'm not, person, thing, it's that on the screen through YouTube. Okay, so thanks for watching, and said if you've got any questions at all on what I've been through, please do comment in the obviously on the comments below, you know, as opposed to just punching your screen and going, I can't take enough of this, and just like, yeah, causing anarchy on the streets. I'd probably get arrested if I tried to advocate that, so for liability reasons I wouldn't, obviously that's bad. Okay, so anyway, so thanks for watching. Hopefully it's, you know, been of some benefit to you. And if you have any questions, if you have any matrices, multiplications that you would like me to do, that you've seen, if it's too difficult for you, then please do either message me on my Bills7187 Facebook page, and I will, if you want to take us, you can send pictures obviously through Facebook these days. It's quite technically advanced. If you know, if you have them abilities, please do send me a picture of the question, not anything else, and I will do a video answering your particular question. Okay, and obviously it will be the right answer quite clearly, even though you don't think I could do that, but you can. So anyway, it does support of other people. Right, so thanks for watching, and because me to have like a connections then. Well, yeah, I've got connections. I can take you out if I want to. So what? Anyway, so thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video, whenever that may be, or whatever that might be. Okay, so thanks for watching. See you soon.